All right, our top story this morning. After suggesting that employees need to work 70 hours a week, Narayana Murthy is back in news, this time with some parenting advice. Now, speaking at an event in Bengaluru, he said that parents cannot watch movies themselves while asking children to study. Fair point, right? But he also went ahead to share some more details. He shared how he and his wife Sudha Murthy dedicated almost 3.5 hours every day to reading to their children, Akshara and Rohan Murthy, during their schooling years in what they thought was creating an environment of discipline.
Now, we'll share more about what it is that Narayana Murthy said, because he said, my wife's logic was, if I'm watching TV, I can't tell my children to study. So the wife and him, they had a conversation. She said, I'll sacrifice my TV time and I'll also study. Murthy said soon the Infosys billionaire's insights on good parenting went viral. Many have now, and we've got these reactions coming out. We're going to share some of them with you. Some have said, look, these remarks suggest that parents need to spend 3 to 4 hours with their children every single day. We're actually going to play out those remarks for you. But if parents are working 72 hours, because essentially what people are doing online now is they're comparing the comment Narayana Murthy made earlier with this one. And they're saying, if you've earlier said that we need to work 72 hours as you recommend, then when will we devote time for kids, especially this kind of time? 3 hours, 4 hours. This was asked by one ex-user. We're actually just playing out for you all of these tweets on your screen.
Yeah, another reaction went on to ask about how exactly is this going to work in modern day and age. This is somebody again on Twitter who went on to say, sir, with all due respect, we are working about 17 hours a week. And if that's the case, how exactly do you expect 3.5 hours out of that with children? About 6.5 hours for sleeping. So hats off, but how is this math really going to add up? So that's what a lot of people are asking. But all of these comments aside on social media, we love sort of dissing out. The core purpose of picking up the story on TVC this morning has been this: to understand where is the balance in parenting after all. How do we understand what is helicopter parenting and what is not? What is doing too much and what is doing just too little? To understand that, we've got a fascinating guest on the program with us. She's obviously going to be taking us through what jibes aside can really be looked at when it comes to this story. Joining us is Mansi Zaveri. She's somebody who runs a portal called kidsstoppress.com. She's a conscious parenting coach and an author as well. Hi, Mansi. Good morning. Thanks so much for joining us. At the core of what Mr. Murthy has said it's pretty simple, it's basic, and it's what everybody would like to follow. There is a common saying when it comes to kids in the house that monkey see, monkey do. It doesn't matter what you teach them. It doesn't matter what they read at school. What they end up doing is what they see and absorb their parents do. Is that the basic premise of what Mr. Murthy is saying then?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm contrary to what people believe, I kind of agree with him, because I really feel that kids watch and see and learn more than they listen, because we're obviously talking in very fast-paced language and too much for them to comprehend. Like a child at the age of 1 does not even understand what you're saying. He does not have a vocabulary, but what he can do is just mimic what he is seeing. So I just feel like absolutely monkey see, monkey do. It's bang on.
Okay, but just tell us, Mansi, we are living in a quickly changing age. I think it's fair to call the age we're living in the age of AI. How does parenting need to change to adapt to these changes?
No, honestly not. I just feel like we're kind of misconstruing what he said. He's saying a very simple thing. All he's saying is that, and I read what his statements were. His statement was very simple. He said that while your kids are studying, if you're going to be watching TV, that is just not going to be okay. It's just human nature that when somebody is having fun and pleasure and your life is not so great, then you will obviously be in an envious position towards that person, right? And that is exactly what he's saying. So yes, sometimes as parents, we need to support each other and say that this is, if my child is waking up at 4 a.m., I will wake up at 4 a.m. And So now there's no way that I have compromised
Wow.
on my career or I have said that I am not a 21st century parent. But we've made this choice of raising our children to bring them into this world. We've got to, and I'm not saying it's the man or it's the woman, it's either parent, but there has to be a primary
Yeah.
caretaker. It could even be a grandparent, right? Who's taking charge and saying that if the child needs help, with studies, we are going to make time for it, right? There are some parts of parenting which you can outsource, and there are some, unfortunately, that cannot. I'm a working parent as well, and I feel that you have to create safe pockets where you say that, okay, this is going to be time that I'm actively going to spend with my child, whether it's studying, whether it's reading, whether it's playing, which is going to be undistracted opportunity. I wake up at 5 a.m. every day to teach my kids because that's a safe pocket for me. I'm a better parent.
Yeah, yeah. I think the issue here is, and I love the safe pocket analogy, Mansi, that you've picked up. But what Mr. Narayana Murthy is actually saying that it's about 3.5 hours every day, which modern parenting is finding very hard to sort of complement. That where is the time? How do you take that out, really? But identify this for us. There is a very thin line, or if one can call it a Lakshman Rekha, between what is too much parenting and what is not. Because the minute you get into this domain, there is this helicopter parenting, this omnipresent parent who's always there all the time, not really letting the child take their own decisions and, make their own choices. So how does one sort of, draw a line there?
Honestly, when you are trying to make your child crippled with that attention, it becomes helicopter parenting. Like I said, I may not be studying for my child. I can't do that. I can't learn for her. I cannot do all of that. But what I can do is just support her. Do you want a cup of tea? Do you want a cup of milk? Do you want to, I am there. Can I wake you up at a certain hour? We also have to understand that we're expecting our kids to grow up too soon. If we understand the part of the adolescent brain, it says that they are not equipped to take wiser decisions. Their brains are not fully developed. What are you doing? You're just supporting a child by not watching TV while they have exams. Like my daughter has her first term exam soon after Diwali, and I was scheduled to travel. And I said, maybe I can tweak my schedule around. And like I was saying earlier, Brené Brown said a very beautiful thing. Like you have kid focused families, you have parent focused families, and you have family focused families. And at different points in time, you will need to be a different parent.
Yeah.
You will need to prioritize very differently. Like for the next 2 months, I'm going to be traveling. It is going to be about my family will need to be aligned with my schedule. When my daughter's exams are going to be there, we are aligned with her schedule because that is family priority. So I think just giving them that time, giving them that undivided attention, I don't think it's asking for too much because they need that time.
Mansi, let me ask you, a lot of our viewership is in, Bangalore, Bombay, Chennai, all cities where you're likely to have a lot of nuclear families. These are dual income families usually, so mother, father, both working as we've discussed, living in urban areas. What's your advice specifically for them?
Again, I'll say you've got to what's your compromise, right? You're not going to get results without compromise. And Randy Zuckerberg said a very interesting thing. Out of these 5, you're going to get any 3, which is family, friends, work, health, and of course, sleep. And I would combine sleep and health today as one. And I would say the 5th could be possibly entertainment. What are you saying no to? Right? So you've got to pick your top 3. For me, it's very clearly at this point in time, it's work, health, and family. Right? Everything else could wait. So my point would be to all those urban parents saying that I don't have time or I can't make time for my child. Well, you've decided to have the child, right? So now you must make time for the child. Yes, like example, I'm a working parent. I possibly don't go out Monday to Friday. I don't have a social life. That's because that's my compromise or that's the choice I've made to be a more present parent or to be more involved in my child's life. I may not have I don't watch a lot of OTT or I don't watch the latest movie or the latest shows simply because, again, that's time consuming, that's taking away. If you want to do everything, it's not going to happen. You will need to prioritize. And my simple point is, what are you going to let go of? What is the price you're going to pay for the choice that you're making?
So you can't have it all. You've got to pick your battles and you've got to pick those safety nets as well. Lots of thinking to do on that one. But Mansi, tell us this. Has parenting style also changed, or should it change with every generation? We're also looking at first-time parents. The millennial parents have become, the adult millennials have become parents for the first time. This is a very different generation, grew up in a very different environment. Should that also change, or should we keep going back to the parenting norms that were set up by, say, the generation of Narayana Murthy?
I think what works is great connection and great empathy, right? Because they understand what they've gone through. Today we see so many people on social making fun of their parents or how they were raised, right? And how their mom would say something or their aunt would say something, aise kapde mat pehno, aise mat bolo, ye mat karo, or just funny things like that, right? So I think there is a lot of recognition that everything that our parents did wasn't right, but also embracing some parts of it that they did were great. Also, I feel there is a lot of connection and adaptability. We need to understand that we are digital adapters while our kids are digital natives, right? So we are adapting to what they are saying. But I think the generation possibly a little bit after us, the late millennials, they would probably be able to adapt. They would probably understand what these kids are going through a little bit more. And of course, there are things like the apps that they use or the aids that they want to use, right? Or the mediums that they want to learn through. I think probably Gen Alpha is probably the last generation that's learning through textbooks. I don't think that the ones after the post-Instagram era, I don't even think that they're using textbooks anymore. So I think just understanding that learning is audio-visual today, and understanding that I also learn through that medium and it's interactive, I think will create a lot of empathy or a lot of fun in teaching and studying and education and interaction. But at the same time, not taking away from the human connection that we all crave for as social animals.
Right. Okay, Mansi, we're almost out of time. So let's just ask you this, because we do want to add this aspect to the entire story. We are a country where student distress is a reality, right? This is a country where academics can just be so heavy, for example, that you hear of horrific stories in the news too. I just want to ask you, therefore, what is too much when it comes to the time you're spending? What is too little? What's a final takeaway our audiences can take home?
That's so. I'm so happy that you asked that question, because we recently did a whole survey on the adolescent brain and suicide from trigger to action. What really actually causes that? And just understanding from parents that each of us have a different child. So to accept and embrace that, to find warning signs that we see in children that causes distress in them. What are we expecting out of our children, and understanding what are their capabilities and drawbacks, strengths and weaknesses. So just being more mindful of that. I think today we are just lacking that human connection because we don't have time for that human connection, right? And because the parents somewhere are losing that connect, the child is finding solace in other issues. And to say how much is that tug of war, whether am I doing too much, am I pressurizing, that's a constant battle that the child is feeling and that the parent is feeling. Like, how do I say no to my parent and how do I say no to my child? I think it's that the tug of war gets a little more relaxed if you are in sync with your child and and explain your why. Like simple thing like I snatched my child's phone and she didn't like it and she locked herself in the room. We need to understand that the adolescent brain takes about 20 minutes to come back to equilibrium because their prefrontal cortex is not fully developed, right? And what the prefrontal cortex or the fore part of the brain understands is more through love and reasoning. And are we as parents ready to give that love and reasoning?
Right, all right, Mansi, we leave it there for the moment. Lots of interesting takeaways from what you've just said, and the debate is open. It's clearly for parents, each individual, each family, each child is different. It's got to, we can't have one prescription for all. There can't be one paracetamol for all. Yeah, it can't be like that, and I think that's where the balance in the story is really required. But moving